Hi, everybody, and welcome to this nice little side event we have planned for you guys today. We had a panel back 2 days ago. Am I right? 2 days ago at Singapore Blockchain Week that was discussing STOs, the pros, the cons. We didn't have a lot of time. We had 45 minutes, which may seem like a lot of time, but to go granular on such a broad topic can be quite difficult. So we brought all the panelists back. We're actually missing one right now, but he's going to join us a bit later, and that's Zoran from the CMA in Montenegro, the president of the CMA, the regulator in Montenegro. But for now, we have the other panelists, as well as Rachel, who was moderator on the last panel, and in this panel, this discussion, she's going to be contributing on the main topic. So I'm going to open the floor first, just to let everybody do a quick introduction to themselves, and then we'll roll out with some topics and start discussing. If you have questions, please post them either on YouTube or Facebook, and as they come in, I'll ask them to the table, and we'll discuss them as well. So go ahead, guys. I'll start with Evan. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I'm Evan Griffin. Currently sitting in a hotel in Tel Aviv, but I'm heading up Tangible, a property development company in Hokkaido, Japan. We've got a great little site there to do our base camp project, located in Niseko, commonly known as winter's premier snow destination. And we're teamed up with CoinMetro and Ignium to issue what seems to be the world's first digitized. And yeah, moving on.
Okay. Thank you, Evan. Remo, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Remo Hammerberg. I'm CEO and co-founder of Ignium. And Ignium is a company providing global settlement, cross-border settlement and custody services for digital securities, effectively providing the infrastructure for STOs to happen. And my own background, I've been practicing capital markets and financial services attorney for the last 20 years, and now moving from that space to Ignium, to digital assets. So happy to be here. Thanks.
And Rachel, go right ahead.
Hi, yeah, I am calling in from Helsinki, but I'm actually part of Finance Magnates, which is a publication that covers the financial and cryptocurrency space, based in Tel Aviv. Hello, Evan.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I'm a journalist and a podcast host of Finance Magnates, and I'm here today to sort of provide the media perspective on STOs and the STO scene. So really happy to be here.
And Daryl, go right ahead.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Daryl Parker. I'm from Cog Network. I'm the CTO here at Cog Network, and we're here in Texas, and we're proud to be here with you guys. We'll be launching a STO that will be comprise several unique items that we'll talk about probably later on in this discussion. But we're looking to launch initially here in the United States, but immediately thereafter we plan to spread to Singapore and be able to share some of our ideas and technologies with the rest of the world. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. So I'll do a quick introduction for myself as well. My name's Kevin. I'm CEO at CoinMetro. So together with Remo and Evan, we're all kind of in a joint project, also with the government of Montenegro, to launch an infrastructure and a first issuance. So Evan from Tangible being the first issuance, and Remo and I are representing two companies, both CoinMetro and Ignium, which will support on the infrastructure and on the front end side that issuance. From the issuance of a digital asset to the primary sale of that digital asset, all the way through to the secondary market trading of that same digital asset. So I think I'll open the floor with just a simple. Now, again, this isn't. I guess you could kind of consider this somewhat like a panel discussion, but I think I would like to consider it more just like a round table. So we all can openly discuss. Nothing's really going to be directed at any single person. We just throw the topic out there, act like we're sitting around, the dinner table and just discuss it. And as questions come in, we'll go ahead and address them. So I think, on the panel, we started to discuss a little bit about, let's say, the pros and cons of the process. And when I say the process, I just mean going through the process of creating an asset, looking to do an STO, trying to, gather up the paperwork and what's needed, the actual conception of what you thought you'd have to do, and the misconceptions that you found out you had along the way. So considering that, we're all involved in the same, and we've all we've been involved with, or we've read about STO issuances. We've all seen the liquidity problems, but we have two individuals, and that's Evan and Daryl, who have are different stages of actually going through it. So yeah, let's just start by discussing, what we initially, I guess, what was our initial expectation when we kind of went from this ICO bubble and people started talking about STOs and that they were the next best thing. So what were our expectations? What were the misconceptions that we met along the way? I think let's open it up there. So I'll start, I guess, just by saying that I think obviously my company, CoinMetro, ran an ICO back in 2017, right at probably right before the bubble burst in the ICO for ICOs. And the ICO, for me, the journey through ICO was quite, it was hectic, but there was obviously no regulatory real burden. There was a bit. Obviously, when you had it to service specific countries, there was a slight regulatory burden. Many people didn't bother with any regulatory burden. Some people some companies like CoinMetro actually went along and did what they thought. And when I say thought, I mean thought, because there really wasn't any truth. There was no framework. There really was no laws that were established at the time, laws were established, but they weren't applied. So it was hectic and it was kind of crazy, but like most people, like a lot of people have said, it's kind of like the wild, wild west, right? Or that's what it felt like. And then when the term STOs came out, I kind of had this vision that, it was going to be difficult. And that's mainly because I didn't really see how the technology alone was going to completely get rid of the regulatory or the admin burden when raising funds. And I guess in that sense, that's one thing that I think I was correct about. Though I did expect more incumbent players to actually jump into this STO bubble. More, there's lots of companies out there, lots of entities with MTF licenses in the EU, ATF licenses in the US. There's lots of entities that could be creating aggregated liquidity, that could be out there legally under regulation, but nobody did it, and still almost nobody's doing it. And that to me is a bit of that puzzles me a bit. I don't really get I get the standoffishness from institutions a bit, at least initially, because I think they didn't think there was much meat on the bone, that maybe this was a fad and it was going away. But now lots of people are talking, lots of dust is stirring, but you still don't really see a lot of focus on creating what's needed to actually have a functional market, which to me is perplexing. I don't know if anybody shares that same.
I think it is perplexing, but what I found listening to a lot of the talks from Singapore Blockchain Week is everyone's pushing for regulation at the moment. This is something that you spoke about many years ago, and as much as the regulation may not be there, everyone seems to be more open and welcome to it.
Yeah, good point.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as far as regulation. I think we went into this thinking that we could probably do this a lot faster than what we have been able to. But due to the regulatory environment here in the United States, it's we're dealing with laws from 1933 and 1940, and obviously they don't quite apply to what we're doing today. But it's definitely been fun trying to do things in a regulatory and compliant way. But that's the only way we see that we can do it properly. But I think that's probably what hinders a lot of people or entities from probably stepping into the industry at the moment. But with what Kevin, Evan, and Remo are working with within the regulatory guidance with Montenegro, they're taking huge steps forward, and I think anyone looking to step into this market can look to this, what they've been able to facilitate, and roll with that.
I have just while we're discussing, I have a question that came in from, I'm going to post it here on the screen for everybody so you can see it. So can any EU citizen buy and sell on so specific to CoinMetro, but on CoinMetro's secondary market. So I guess I'll take this. But so obviously that secondary market, just to be clear, when it's up and running, will be under the guise of that Montenegro sandbox license. So there are countries in the broader, I guess, EEA that one country specifically actually that can't participate, and that's Iceland. Are they in the EEA actually? No, right? They're the Schengen area, but they're not the EEA, right? Anyway, and that's mainly because of their inclusion on the FATF gray list. Outside of that, for the most part, there are 14 different, at least initially, in terms of primary, there are a list of 15 countries, I believe, that are going to be able to take part inside the broader EU. As far as secondary, however, I think I'll bring in Remo on this part of the discussion. From a secondary, as a primary and secondary can be different in terms of applicable law. So we'll have our table lawyer throw out
Right.
I'm interested in this.
Right. It would be, of course, interesting to learn from Björn what he exactly had in mind when saying, can citizen buy and sell on CoinMetro secondary market? So, because there are two different kind of categories of assets, what can be traded on CoinMetros. One is utility tokens, or let's call them non-securities. Non-securities, yes, of course, no questions. Anybody can buy and sell secondary regulated. CoinMetro has been properly licensed under the laws of Estonia, which is effectively AML license. Now, when it comes to the financial instruments and securities, or financial instruments as we call them in EU, then as Kevin said, CoinMetro doesn't have the MTF license, but it does have license from Montenegro regulatory authority to operate within the frames of the sandbox. It is the same license what Ignium has, and together we provide this end-to-end market infrastructure. So, as far as sandboxing is concerned, sandboxing doesn't have cross-border passports. No sandbox in the world has. Even SECs doesn't have, FCAs doesn't have, Singapore doesn't have. So as far as regulation is concerned, then yes, you can operate on that market and rely, technically speaking, on reverse solicitation. But when you, for example, go to CoinMetro, find CoinMetro, you can buy and sell assets, including securities, as long as CoinMetro has the sandbox license. And sandbox license, we have to say, is time barred. So it's limited in time. It's currently 42 years. So this is a long answer to your short question. Yes, you can, with no limitations to utility tokens. Yes, you can financial instruments. If you go to CoinMetro platform, CoinMetro will not be actively marketing itself in different countries in the world, as far as financial instruments are concerned.
So Remo, I'll step that up a little. And what about US citizens who happen to find CoinMetro? Are they able to trade the secondary market?
And trading, yes, because again, you know, I think that's the response where Kevin went in already. Effectively, we have to distinguish between primary offering and secondary trading. Primary offering, when we offer securities to the public, then we are subject to these general securities laws in each country as they apply. And for US citizens, for example, particular tangible offer will be relying on Reg D and 506C, Rule 506C, which we can solicit publicly, but only for accredited investors. In Europe, we will be relying on a different safe harbors. Europe is a fairly plain vanilla place for small offerings. So we can really go in 10 plus countries without any documentation. And in other countries, we have to provide limited documentation, but not really full status. So that as far as primary offering is concerned. But when we speak about secondary, yes, people can trade on CoinMetro, provided CoinMetro doesn't solicit its services actively in those countries.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think definitely two different markets, primary and secondary. Different laws apply. As Remo said, that sandbox license is a 2-year license. So from a business standpoint on CoinMetro side, as well as I guess anybody that's in a sandbox, to be honest, if your idea works or it actually has legs, the goal is to be licensed inside of that time period, either in the jurisdiction where you hold the sandbox or elsewhere. And obviously that's the goal here as well. But yeah, I think that's the goal of anybody that's in a sandbox, right? Is to
Kevin, if I may just follow the discussion where you and Evan and Darryl started already.
Yes.
So regarding the misconceptions, kind of a complete circle or complete round there. So perhaps I'm providing then since I have the experience with the incumbent or traditional securities markets, I'm providing a perspective of how does it look from that perspective, and it does have general quite few misconceptions. The first one: what is the entry barrier to the incumbents? As you mentioned earlier, you expected incumbents to join the game much faster and in a much bigger volumes, but something is holding them back. And I believe one thing what is holding them back was everything what ICO was surrounded with. And effectively, there was a lot of reputational risk actually around it. Kind of a quite loose or lazy AML KYC solutions, which are now becoming much more stringent. Non-existent governance, disclosure culture, and so forth. So in the end, many projects really, startup projects, and we have been speaking about it, not go in there anymore, but many projects really going down under, and many incumbents and institutionals didn't want to have the reputational risk of being connected with something or being associated with something like that. But this, however, starts to fade away now. And STOs are an interesting place where the ICO world and the traditional security world are kind of intersecting, trying to mingle and find more effective way operating securities markets, kind of according to the principles for which ICOs were carried out. So now, the two misconceptions, for example, what I've learned on this journey with Ignium and CoinMetro. So the conventional securities markets are operating in a very, I would say, in a very distinct, clear, and simple manner. So you have
we lose right now?
then you have people called finance specialists, and they go and sell.
I think Rainbow, we lost you for a second there. So can you back up about 30 seconds?
All right. So maybe it's my network here. Okay. Is it okay now?
Yes. What everyone can do just to save up some bandwidth, if they like, is to go down at the bottom of the screen, go to your cam and mic settings, and then reduce the resolution on your camera to 480p rather than 720, which is usually the default. So that should save up some bandwidth for everybody.
So Kevin, could you run through again?
We love seeing you in high res.
Go down to the little widget that says cam and mic. It should be at the bottom of the screen.
Yes.
You go to the camera settings and select the camera resolution at either 480 or 360p. 480 should be okay. If it's set already at 480, go to 360. I
go to 360. Okay.
So that should save up. If everybody does lower resolution, we should save a bit of bandwidth. Maybe that'll help everybody out here. We'll see.
Okay. Sorry for that. So I'm coming back now with my point regarding the misconceptions. So conventional securities markets, what I was saying, they operate actually in a very simple manner. And you have the primary markets, you do the prospectus, and you have a placement agent running the book for you. Easy, kind of a costly, but easy in terms of structure. Then you list your securities on the exchanges, and the exchanges, again, while the process, again, can be costly, they are not interconnected and they are isolated beasts. But as such, for structural purposes, they're very easy. They do only secondary trading. And then you go to post-trade or settlement space. Again, they're all isolated. They create many problems. They create, fragmentation of the markets. But structurally, when you look at the vertical, they're very easy. So when you start putting it together, like, different puzzle pieces, they actually fit together really nicely and in a simple manner. So you put the primary market, secondary market, post-trade. And when we entered into this STO space as well, we thought, well, wouldn't that be beautiful? So you do this, post-trade infrastructure, connect all this STO exchanges to it, and you simply start doing business. But surprise, surprise, in the STO space or crypto space, it doesn't work like this. So the structure of the market operators is somewhat different. Everybody tries to do the entire vertical. And the same for the primary crowdfunding service providers, and the same for the crypto exchanges. So the big learning point, or kind of a misconception for me, so to speak, was really that those markets do not operate in the same manner. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just different. They create, though, a different set of silos. But it's maybe it's better. But it's a misconception that you cannot really transform the logic from the conventional security space to STO space immediately, as far as the infrastructure is concerned. So that's been the learning point, the misconception for me.
Yeah. I would say.
Sorry, go ahead, Daryl.
Sorry, Rachel, go ahead.
Oh, I would just, wanted to ask you, Daryl and Evan, sort of about the process. As we both mentioned, this is something, or Daryl, as you mentioned specifically, that this is something that you started and, thought would take a certain amount of time and has been taking a lot longer. So I'm wondering for both of you, have there already been efforts to connect with possible investors, at the end of this process, once the tokens are available? And if so, how have you managed to sort of maintain that relationship or, continue to build, let's say, excitement about this product, despite the fact that there have been some delays in terms of time? And if you haven't connected with those investors yet, sort of what is the plan for that?
Go ahead, Daryl.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, obviously we haven't launched just yet. We are still in the angel phase of the investment stage. But really what we're waiting on, there's some very specific things. We're finalizing a PPM and, trying to get everything, again, completely within the regulations here in the United States. But we're, kind of as we move forward, and are able to have all these licenses and everything in place, we will, through the regulations here in the States with Reg D, we'll, reach out to the 99 or less U.S. accredited investors, and then also, then we'll follow through internationally with Reg S and deal with the regulations within the various different jurisdictions and everything. So that's kind of the process that we're looking at doing. It's there's just so much to consider, and as Remo had mentioned, we're dealing with a lot of the security licenses and the flows that are normal for everyone within a traditional security, but we're having to take all of that and then try to adapt it over to what we're doing with the STO process. Go ahead.
I was just saying, Evan, go ahead. Maybe you'd like to.
Well, in our particular case, we're not really delayed, and I think we're lucky in that a company like Ignium and Coin Metro are really doing the heavy lifting. So we're all set to go. Pretty much, I think the gents can confirm, but a sale date on or around the middle of August. And we do have a group. We've got a small group. We're yet to actively market the product. We've got a small group on Telegram of about 90 people, like I mentioned in the panel the other day, more of a test group. So what we found is the people look for those huge returns, right, from the ICO days. And what we offer is something modest but backed by a real product. And this investment can grow in value, of course. Possibly into high gains. But yeah, in that regard, no, we're not delayed. We've got the guys behind us, and they offer a great product which allows us to get this raise done.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think because we talk a lot about the crossovers or the differences between ICOs and STOs, but there's a couple things that they definitely share, aside from technology and whatever. In fact, before we went live here, we were having a discussion between myself, Evan, and Remo about specific to the Tangible project and what type of investors would come in if they're going to read the legal terms in a document, or because a normal investor, let's say a traditional investor, who's going to invest his savings into a project that's would be considered still at a higher risk than, let's say, putting it into an ETF or some type of managed product in the traditional market, would probably read through the entire private placement memorandum or brochure or documentation, legal and otherwise. Maybe he would even bring it to his accountant and perhaps his legal advisor and have them take a look. Obviously, on the ICO and during the ICO bubble, that didn't happen for the most part. I mean, there were people that read white papers, and I feel bad for them because I was one of them, and it was painful. But I'm sure Remo read his fair share of white papers. So sorry about that, my friend. I'm sure it was. But yeah. So but for the most part, nobody read anything. It was a hype-driven. Like to Evan's point, a hype-driven. I want to make 5,000x in 37 seconds, and if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be pissed. Type of market. But eventually, the ICO market did, before it blew up, start to somewhat mature itself in the sense that people started to read things. There was a bit more of not just so much a topical discussion and when moon and things like that, but people did really start to, well, not really start, but people did start to actually look a little bit more deeper into projects. But one question I have that hasn't been answered yet, I don't mean here on this discussion, just in general from the market, is how is it going to evolve? Because when it comes to private placements and having the ability to get into primary issuances of some type of asset, the vast majority of the retail world has never had access to that. Mm-hmm. And there definitely is a difference between a guy that's a retail guy investing his savings versus I would say, and when I say retail, that simply usually means not a lot of experience. Doesn't necessarily mean amount of money you have. It doesn't mean, you could be a billionaire and be a retail investor. Mm-hmm. Because your dad gave you all the money when he died or something, and you just don't have experience. And you could be have vast experience with little money. So that doesn't. But retail generally means it's your first time around. Your first kind of drive in the feet. Your first time behind the wheel, and you're probably going to make mistakes. But are we really going to see? Because in the traditional sense, I've invested in lots of stuff, and I may have been in one PPM or another, but to be honest, I never received, tradable shares in a private entity that I invested in. I never, so this whole idea of kind of because the current regulations we have are there to protect people. And at least that's most regulators, if you ask them what their job is, in the top three, they're going to say consumer or investor protection, right? Maybe number one, maybe number two, depends on what country you go to. But that's going to be in the list. And that usually happens from documentation, oversight, et cetera. That's how they and regulation and applying the law. That's usually how they protect the investor. But when we saw in the ICO bubble, most retail guys pay attention to most of the documentation and read it. And if they did, they probably didn't play too much of a role into what they were investing in. So are we gonna, because we're taking this, and then the regulation that exists, if no one's gonna, if people don't read documentation, if retail guys are gonna just kind of run in and use FOMO and get fear of missing out, and hype is gonna drive the market, the STO market initially, will regulations have to change to actually protect consumers? Will they, and how would they change? Mm-hmm. Or is it just a sense that, do we think that the novel STO market is going to become the traditional market in 15 years? Like, will our kids or our grandkids talk about STOs like we're currently talking about, the traditional market? Will it become the traditional market? Will it be something, new in 20 years? that we think is crazy as old, we're old now and we're gonna be like, oh, that's too high risk. STOs, those were where the stuff was at, now this stuff is too risky. So are we gonna see a 360, or is it just become, traditional with some added bonuses?
If I may, Kevin, I'll take it from here. You, of course, posed many fundamental, I would say even philosophical and political questions, but many of which have been answered also in the past. So as far as investor protection concerned, by being a capital markets attorney myself, I can say, yes, the aim is to protect investors, but as applied in practice, they protect investors, not investors, the issuers and the advisors. Because the way that the shape what the documentation takes, it becomes the shield for the issuers and for the advisors through which no investor claim should benefit or penetrate. You should not pierce that shield. And that is the task for the lawyers. And that is the task for the accountants. And that is the task for the auditors and so forth, and technical due diligence providers. So that is for one. Investor protection, I think, has been taken, retail investor protection, already to the extreme. I mean, it should be rather made less than made more. The regulation is there is more than enough. And governments are already relaxing. Take the same Jobs Act in US and the Rec D and the 506C and 506B, what we are relying on for tangible, for example. The requirements are relaxing already as we speak. The question what we are actually tackling here is the investor education, and that's what you, Kevin, touched upon. And how do you bring that on a grassroots level? And that is being addressed both, it's for years. How do you bring it really to the elementary school? How do you bring it to the basic school? How do you bring it to the high school? And then further on, that once people graduate, they actually have the proper literacy as far as finances are concerned. And then what will happen to the STOs? It's I think kind of as we believe, that's why we built the Ignium. That's why you built CoinMetro. We believe it's going to be enhanced new normal. I think that's the way to put it, because we do have many assets. Why I say enhanced? Because there will be many more asset classes, but all subject to the same treatment as we treat them currently. It will not be only bonds and equity. There will be many tokenized assets, much more liquidity, and that's where the enhancement comes in. But other than that, I think it's simply the revolution will not be as big. I think the revolution was much bigger when the securities became dematerialized. So now we remain dematerialized. We aim to go decentralized. Let's see how it goes. It's a nice ambition or nice vision to be totally decentralized. I don't think it's happen anytime soon, but it's a nice vision.
I think it is the new norm, and hopefully it does become traditional. But as someone who understands the product quite well, and I think the product's fantastic, but it's just that trust issue, right? Trying to get the wider community to trust the product and to trust people like us, and that's the battle. I think it's fantastic, but I know it's hard, yeah. And I understand why people aren't going to necessarily jump in and trust a bunch of guys on a YouTube chat, but that's the challenge. So you help us answer that one, Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's actually, I was going to ask a little bit more about that. And Remo, what I really liked what you said, earlier about, bringing this to sort of an elementary level, all of these things, if the SEO, one of the beauties of the SEO concept is that it has the potential to kind of capture this long tail of retail investors who, haven't necessarily had the know-how or, the access to these kinds of markets before. So, I mean, I'm curious, just sort of like on the most practical level, are any of you involved in efforts that are specifically targeted toward education or marketing to this long tail of investors? Or have you seen examples of companies that you think are doing this really effectively, kind of in maybe the cryptocurrency space more generally?
I don't think there's anyone really doing it. So there's a lot of theory out there, a lot of discussion. But other than, say, Daryl and ourselves, who is there anyone else really doing it? And the way we try to educate is a landing page, ask us questions in the same MO as Coin Metro, be transparent, be honest, give people answers it when they ask them. But I don't think there's anyone else doing it. And what we've done is answer questions, and we've laid out the detail of how our product works on the site. But I guess there's a next level that we need to go to, and everyone needs to go.
Yeah. I think I totally agree with that. I mean, being completely transparent is one of the key things, I think, and what I think will be lead to our success. But I engage everybody, whether they want to talk specifically about STOs or just crypto markets. But I think that with STOs, I mean, it's not just the crypto market that we'll be looking at. We're looking at all the markets. I mean, we're looking at traditional finance and everything like that. Our original intent, and still is, our primary goal is to be able to reach people that would not normally have access to these types of technologies. But regulation, dictates that we can only go after, here in the States, 99 or less U.S. accredited investors. So that, knocks out a lot of people. We don't have as many regulations that we have to abide by abroad, but they still exist. But we hope that once we reach to those people, I think that Remo can probably support this. But ultimately, we will reach secondary markets, and we will be able to reach to the people that can really benefit from this. And part of our strategy is to have that strong marketing back. And I think that you guys have worked with some of our team also, and you see how some of that stuff works. But it's the education is ongoing, and we're laying the foundation right now, and there will be changes, but we'll be here to support and adopt them.
I think everybody talks about access to investors or investors having access, which is great, but that means issuers have access to those investors as well. It also means that, I think that for the longest time, most regulators have thought the best way to protect retail investors was to stop them from participating. Like that was the best. We all know that prohibition doesn't work, right? So what basically, and that prohibition never works anywhere. It doesn't work with drugs, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work on securities either, because essentially what happens is ICOs happen. So when you put a wall up, eventually people will try to find a way around the wall. And when issuers found a way around the wall, they exploited it, and they exploited it to the best they possibly could. So as Remo said, that regulators have definitely started to loosen the strings. But when it comes to education, I think we could all do more. That's for sure. But I think education starts a lot of times from the top to the bottom, meaning it starts at the regulator level, because we can educate all we want, but if we can't get people in the door to participate, then it's great that they know what they're doing. But unfortunately, most countries don't push accredited status on someone because they're intelligent. They put it on them because they have money, which obviously is an asinine way to accredit an investor. Most people, many people with money don't know what to do with it and are very bad at managing. And there's people without money that potentially could be quite good at managing. So I think that, and there are, even the US is talking about changing accredited investor rules to include the understanding of the underlying asset, rather than just I have 300K worth of income with my spouse, or I have $1 million in assets outside of my primary residence, which also hasn't changed for so long that used to be quite a barrier to become accredited. It's not that much of a barrier anymore. If you look on the coast of the US, the vast majority of populations in cities can meet that accreditation status. In terms of, I don't mean the vast population of the population period, but the amount of people looking to invest in something, a lot of those people can meet that accreditation status in the cities. And obviously when you get in the middle of the country, it gets more difficult. But it's a stupid way to classify it. It's just dumb. Money is smart.
I think
man, we have on our hands. Lots of money in the world, but there's definitely a lack of brain power. So I think that all of us can do our part. But what we really need to do collectively before we start to not before, but as we're trying to educate the public, like we're doing today on this little discussion, is to educate the lawmakers and the regulator. The regulator gets a lot of slack, but they just enforce the law. They don't write it. And when it comes to writing it, in most first world governments, not even the guys you elect to write the laws write them, right? Their assistants do, and they don't even show up to vote on them. So that system sucks, like many systems, and that all that needs to change. Education needs to start from people understanding that there's a lot of education that needs to happen that needs to trickle down before I think our direct education to the public is going to make a massive difference. What it can make a difference is if we tell people to have a voice. You have social media, people can go out there now and actually it's very easy now to have a voice, right? It used to be maybe you had to actually travel somewhere, get on a picket line, put a sign up. I don't know. Now you can just sit at home in your underwear and type on a computer, and you have a voice. And people need to collectively push that voice to change the way, to change, regulation, to change the law, to allow them access to, and that works. We've seen that work. We've seen it around the world for different reasons, whether it was, Arab Spring, whether it was, even regional laws in different parts of countries or states. People have a voice, and Twitter can actually make a difference. How crazy that sounds, but it can actually make a difference. So I think part of everyone's collective job is to just make their voice heard. Mm-hmm. So if you think you want access to the financial system, start telling people you want access to it, because that's only going to help the people trying to make the system, like the guys on the call, the guys on this webinar right now, and every guys in group. I always say guys. I don't mean that offensive, by the way.
It's okay.
The colloquial guys, all of us here.
Yeah.
Then that supports us as well. So we need everybody's support, just like we're trying to create something that will give people access and allow, the world to be a better place, because people will be able to have access, and financial inequality maybe will start to even out, et cetera, over time. But people need to want it and express their want for it.
Sometimes, it's also, Kevin, so that people, when you mean the retail investor base, if they want something, they first must know that there is something, and how to benefit from it. So the practical point here is, what do you think? How many people are on this virtual conference? I don't know. Do any of you have any idea?
Well, we can see Facebook stats. I can see Facebook stats. I can't see YouTube.
Right. No. I mean, not in this particular side event, but on this blockchain conference in general.
Few thousand, maybe.
Few thousand. So imagine, even for a starter, if all those few thousand went back to their school and gave lecture or two on personal finance. I mean, imagine the scalability. In the group, probably 20 to 30 students, right? So multiple with that, and you have a pretty sizable number already. People from early on, they go back to their elementary school and give one lecture about personal finances, and how you should think about those. And already you have an impact. Now going further on, doing it once again, and then perhaps somebody's getting an idea, and something starts to grow. So it's actually, it's, of course, yes, we do those conferences, but where the education really happens, you have to go to where it all starts. Go back to the elementary school, effectively. Go back to the basic school.
I agree.
Somehow build it into the curriculum.
I agree with that completely. I think you do need the regulator to still give the okay for people then to feel comfortable educating the young or the ab initios. And that's where I wish Soren was here. We'd take my hat off to him and the Montenegrin CMA for being the first to step off the block. And I think, like any company head, often they get safe in not doing anything. So we need a few more of those regulators to step off and say, yeah, okay, let's have a look at this. Yeah. And for that to happen, I think they also need a couple of projects like Daryl's and myself to see if it was successful and see if we worked within the correct framework. We didn't do anything untoward, and that would give them confidence to take that step.
And I love what you were saying, Remo, about that this has to be, I think, in a way, sort of focused on educating people about their own financial lives. Maybe not necessarily, and I want to know your thoughts on this too, everyone here, like, that the cryptocurrency industry and, the STO space, all of you all are doing a fantastic job at educating people about, things that are sort of specific to what you're doing. So, what is an STO? Why is it fantastic? What is cryptocurrency and why do we use this? But I think that, this is my hot take on on cryptocurrency at the moment, this whole space, is that if we really want, adoption, sure, the technology is cool, but we need to show why this is an important part of people's financial wellness, more generally speaking. So, why would you want to participate in the STO? Because you can make money, of course, they have the potential, because it's interesting, it's exciting, maybe you want access, to a particular market. But more generally speaking, why would the idea of investing in something in general, sort of be of interest? And I think that for, as you were mentioning earlier, Kevin, there are groups of people who have a lot of money, who don't have a lot of education, who, can become accredited investors, and then people who don't have as much money, who have a lot of knowledge perhaps, but can't access these markets. So I think if we want to sort of drive those people to talk to their regulators, to talk to their communities, their friends, and get them interested in the space, then, we, coming from this side of the industry, have to make an argument for why this benefits them more overall. What are your thoughts on that, sort of?
I think everybody would agree to that.
I mean, it's absolutely, it's Rachel, it's absolutely, we have to show what's the win for them. Yeah. That makes people move. Mm-hmm. That makes the change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for me, I think, is it this basic? Just that if I want to get hold of a company or a stock over in the UK, being based in Hong Kong or Australia, I can't do it. Or I can't necessarily do it. It's quite difficult to get hold of everything. Yeah. But this platform allows us to get hold of products, companies all over the place, and pretty easily. You just have to be a member of the MTF, in this case, Coin Metro, and anything that gets listed there, you have access to, whether that's primary or secondary trading. It just opens up the market to so many more unique companies and products.
Yeah, I just posted something from someone from YouTube, Peter Hudson. It's not a question, but since I just wanted to post it up here, just going to read it real quick. It says, we need a simple system for average people to take accountability for their own financial future and opportunity. Education is key, then human innovation will take over. So just to put a pin on that one, and what Rachel just said as well, and what I was saying earlier, and I think even everybody's commented on the same thing. And we just talked about, accreditation status. And to be honest, if I were the regulator, what days we would have, fellas. I think, to be honest, if I really think about it from why is there, fundamentally speaking, I mean, if you're an adult and the law allows you to, go out and buy alcohol and get drunk until you stupor, you can sign up to go to war and put your life at risk without an exam to see if you're insane. But we need to protect these guys from possibly losing some money. Mm-hmm. I think, to be honest, I think the regulator, I think having not even, you don't necessarily need to understand something to invest in it. What you need to understand is risk. Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. If you understand risk and and acknowledge the fact that you understand the risk, and then you don't, well, you're an adult, and well, that's your problem, I think. And I get I've talked to so many regulators, and I've heard the speech a million times about why they feel that that's not adequate enough. But that's basically the regulator telling me that they don't think people are smart enough or capable enough to understand when they get. And some people aren't, that's for sure. But you're basically penalizing, the entire populace because they don't believe that certain individuals may be able to understand risk. Mm-hmm. I think it boils down to just understanding risk, not necessarily understanding what a convertible bond is, or what a subscription period is, or blah 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 blah, etc. The glossary of terms that you could study to possibly pass a test. Lots of people pass tests, and practically their knowledge of the subject is horrible. I've seen that in my life many times. Great people. Some people are really good at things and can't take tests, and other people are great at tests and are just.
I made it through AP chemistry. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I was really good at science in school. I don't remember a damn thing though. If you put if you put me in a physics chemist lab or something, I would blow it up. That's for sure.
But let's on this one, Kevin, it's let's get real. Most of the investment products are not so sophisticated that the average human being would be able to understand them. I mean, most products, take even tangible, for example. I mean, a simple fixed income product can be converted into equity. And if the project is explained to you, you understand what equity is, right? And then you have the benefit of the use tokens. It's pretty plain vanilla. You can go and stay in that resort, right?
Hello, guys.
Hey, Zoran.
Sorry, yeah, we're
Right.
just talking about how good you were.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
You're praising you in absentia. So.
Right.
Sorry, I'm going to go ahead.
Yep. So most people actually, Zoran, for your benefit, discussing the investors' ability to understand risks and what should be done about it, and markets in general. So the most products are pretty plain vanilla. What it means that all what people need is straightforward, honest information.
Yes.
Delivered in a simple way. And really, you guys have been mentioning that also earlier. And both you, Evan, and Daryl, you said, you simply have to provide information honestly, be open about it. And that's the only way our trust is generated in the human being, right? Because it's kind of the back of our brain actually trusts people when people are open, if they don't have any second agenda. So if you provide the information, investors are able to make judgments. So that's why I do believe those sophistication requirements are obsolete, and they're going away as we see, because regulators are abolishing them as we speak, and they rather go to the volume-based approach. For example, in EU, you have those less than 8 million you could do without prospectus and an issuance of the securities. And then it simply comes down to the integrity of the issuer, how much information they will provide. And it's a simple, cost-benefit analysis. It's if you make it too complex for the issuers, they simply will not go to the retail. It's a cost-benefit.
Yeah.
And then but if it's reasonably simply to go to retail, all what you have to do is be open and honest, then it pays off to develop a appropriate user stories, that it would be easy for the retail to onboard to the project. So in the end, it's kind of really for the issuers to be more open, but also as far as the regulation is concerned, it is always a cost-benefit analysis. Mm-hmm. So that's.
So if we could just have maybe Zoran do a quick introduction since he arrived during this last little bit of conversation. So for people who may have been here, don't know where he's coming from, or just give a quick introduction.
Okay, thank you. My name is Zoran. I'm president of the Capital Market Authority in Montenegro. Montenegro is a Mediterranean country with the political agenda to become EU member. We use euro. We have stable political situation, low taxation. By the corporate tax is 9%, capital gain tax is 9%, and many other macroeconomic issues or policies that I can talk, but I believe that makes Montenegro a very interesting spot or place to start and run a business from, especially in these new technologies, or with using new technologies, which allows basically to work 24 hours around the world. Basically, that's it. My background, I used to be a broker. I'm in regulatory business for a long now, and also professor at the university, trying to create a culture among young people toward financial services.
We just had a long discussion about education, and so I guess we all have to tip our hat to Zoran for actually doing it. We were discussing it, and while he was out there doing it, that's why he showed up late.
On that note, also, I have to jump on another call, so I want to thank all of you for this discussion. I wish you all the best, and to our audience, thank you for joining us. I'm going to step back now and say goodbye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Actually, now that Ramo's back, and Zoran mentioned something there about 24-hour, possibly 7 days a week trading. Is it something that's what we see in the crypto space at the moment, and we don't see it in the traditional equity market? Is that something that you would envisage would be okay? Is there any negatives for that to happen?
I can tell you why it doesn't happen. Like in, for instance, well, one of the main reasons it doesn't happen is reconciliation. And the reason for reconciliation is because of antiquated technology. So things blockchain or similar types of technologies can do is remove the need for that reconciliation. So that could potentially, I mean, FX, OTC markets generally are 24/7. FX is 24/7, has been since, Jesus.
24/7, but you still get a couple of days off, right? Is there a human element here, maybe from Zoran's point of view, where you need to give people a break so they haven't got someone more?
Well, I just say that it allows to be 24/7, but now we have some FX. Maybe it's not the part of this story, but these days we have a big FX companies from Turkey. Turkey is 80 million people country. During this Corona period, they attracted a lot of online investments, and it is booming. They show me figures in the first half of this year. They're already big figures, has risen 400%. And we are welcoming them a lot.
Yeah. Well, I guess when people are stuck at home and have after they've watched everything on Netflix, and there's not much else to do than to throw some money, and either you're gambling in one way, shape, or form. I guess it's either with a slot machine or a trading platform. Right? That's yeah. So let's Daryl, you mentioned at some point, I think, about Cog Network, specifically about starting in the U.S. I think when we were talking about 506C, I saw you nodding. You're probably familiar with all those great exemptions and the Jobs Act and everything. So are you guys only focused on U.S. or are you also envisioning to go outside? I know you mentioned secondary market, but in terms of, let's say, even primary, you guys are looking outside the U.S.?
Absolutely. Obviously being located here in the States, we're obviously looking to start and get the process started here in the States. And, obviously we haven't been able to market or anything like that due to regulations, but once we, take the next step, get the PPM finalized, we can then start to market and everything. But I would say shortly after we launch here in the States, we're working currently to expand into or be ready to expand into other markets. Singapore is one of our key markets where we look to expand, and then EU markets and stuff like that. We'll need to coordinate with the council and all those different jurisdictions, make sure that we have everything set up in place before we actually do provide that in those jurisdictions. So yes, I mean, we're looking at a global launch, but due to capacities and dealing with and making sure that all regulation is abided by, it takes a significant amount of time.
So primary, looking to launch primary in a global market.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering because I remember you talking about specifically the U.S. market. I was just wondering if that was only or perhaps. That's good to know. That's. I'm going to post this on just. It's a question which I just thought it was a good one we can throw up there. So this is a Zoran question. So Zoran, are you the president of Montenegro? Be careful with this one. It's political. It's a little bit of political.
Yes, president of Capital Market Authority.
So good. We cleared that one up.
We have elections now in 30th of August, so who knows?
Okay. Good luck.
now that Zoran is up, well, let me just say we got a okay. Well, now that we have Zoran on the discussion, to pick up a little bit in the beginning, we didn't touch so much on Montenegro because we were waiting for Zoran to join. We've talked obviously a bit about just what we thought what the misconceptions that we ran into about what we thought the STO market would look like, or what it was, or what it meant, and then really what the reality was. We talked a little bit about pain points. Most of those are on the regulatory side, as far as I can hear. Pretty much everybody, when they talk about a pain point, regulation or regulator, is in there at some point. And I know from we collectively between Remo and I. So to give a bit of a backstory about Montenegro and how all this came to be, Remo and I met Zoran at an event in Montenegro back in, what was it, summer of last year, guys? Am I?
2018.
Was it?
Or what?
No, 19. Wasn't it 19?
Okay. It seems longer.
That was. It seems longer because of the 9-hour lunch, but we're not going to bring that one up on this.
It's a decade in crypto terms.
In crypto terms, it's a rough decade.
Yeah.
So we met Zoran at an event. We shared a stage with him on a panel discussion, and we started talking about the size of the market in Montenegro, even population, the size of the market, what's going on there, and obviously with Zoran as the head of the regulator there, kind of telling him some of our stories about dealing with other regulators and what we were trying to do in terms of creating this infrastructure for digital securities or tokenized securities. And the topic came up as sandboxing, and there was a collective wonder in between Remo and I if they had looked at sandbox, and they had. And if those that don't know what a sandbox is, it essentially is a carve out or an exemption basically created by a regulator that gives something akin to a license, a limited license that allows you to operate what would be or what could be a regulated activity without total oversight that you would see, or without having to go through the rigorous licensing process. So you can test for the benefit of the company and also for the benefit of the regulator, because they can see the true risk, they can see how it operates, they can understand if it truly needs to be regulated, perhaps it doesn't need to be regulated, perhaps, et cetera, et cetera. So we started talking about sandboxing, and I think from that conversation, we had a few more conversations. We ended up back in Montenegro a few times, helping the CMA put together a framework for a sandbox. And I think it took, if I recall correctly, 6 weeks from us initiating talks to the CMA actually drafting out a framework for that sandbox, and then roughly 2 more weeks, I think, for it to be adapted into their, I guess not into law, because I think it's not essentially a law, but it's and I'm missing the word here. Somebody can help me. Bylaws, maybe bylaws of the regulator, I guess. Which I don't know anybody out there who's ever dealt with regulators. Obviously, Daryl has definitely dealt with regulators. Remo has. Zoran obviously is one, so he can see it from both sides. But 8 weeks to have a phone call with the regulator is usually something to smile about. Never mind actually having access, talking, going over, and trying to get something done and getting something done in that time frame was absolutely remarkable. And that started the journey for CoinMetro and for Ignium to actually apply into and eventually get accepted into that same sandbox, which took significantly more time than creating the frameworks, I must say. So just because the framework was done quickly doesn't mean that it was done in a brash way or kind of thrown together. There was lots of thought that went in. We took best practices from several different jurisdictions, and I think came up with something quite robust in such a short amount of time. And now we're looking to actually launch the first issuance inside that sandbox between CoinMetro and Ignium, which is tangible, which is Evan, right? Well,
yeah.
This always confuses me with the video. I think Evan's over somewhere around here. I don't know. There it is. And I think from the perspective, obviously, like I said, Daryl can speak definitely to dealing with regulators in the U.S. I can speak to dealing with regulators in the EU and in some cases in the U.S. as well, CFTC for FX trading. And it's usually difficult, and everybody blames the regulator. So when you go on any discussion panel or anything, unless the regulator happens to be sitting there, there's usually the blame usually ends up falling on the regulator. So I guess question to everybody: is that really the case? Is it is it the fact that, and you know, this whole idea that regulation like it can't keep up with innovation, right? And and that's true, because obviously regulators need to apply the law, and the law doesn't change on a daily basis, where the tech or the innovation may. But is there a way for that to become more dynamic? Do we think there's a way for dynamic regulation? And what would that look like?
Okay, can I?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Thank you for this introduction. As you said, we did it in 8 weeks or 6 weeks after we met first time and discussed it. But just to say, it was, let's say, it came about the time when we were developing the new, not strategy, but we try to keep alive, to keep afloat, as many regulators are doing. How to embrace new technologies and new possibilities that are coming every day. Just a few let's say, few marks from history. It is not very long history, just to say. In many jurisdictions from, let's say, 2016, as we try to discuss it and to find allies about crypto and the new digital money and digital payments, digital securities, many regulators were scared to talk about it or were reluctant because it was politically, if I can say, politically incorrect or unacceptable. Then I saw it first time on G20, Financial Stability Board. I think it was January 2018. They said we should investigate into this crypto and digital technologies. Something big is happening there, or it might happen. Maybe I'm not interpreting the right words, but January 2018, as far as I saw, first time in that big agenda mentioning crypto or digital business. Then a few months after, they said in the report, this crypto world is very small now. It is not affecting our financial stability. It is not affecting our financial market, but has a potential to grow substantially. In a way, we have to investigate it, to research on it more, not to investigate like investigation. We have to do more. And in my view, as a regulator, or on the level that we were following through the international organizations of regulators, that was like a start for the race. UK regulators immediately started with the researching this issue. European regulators, Australia, and the word crypto and cryptocurrency become more familiar into the regulatory framework. Even European Directive on Anti-Money Laundering, Directive 5 on Anti-Money Laundering, is mentioning that cryptocurrency is a mean of payment between people, and there is no any single negative meaning attached to it. It does so altogether. This means in the last 2 years things are changing a lot from my perspective, how we see it through regulatory side. We even find that in UK now, in FSA, you can openly and freely speak to FSA people about your crypto business, and through their sandbox. Where it, let's say, lacks, it's more in implementation side with the banks. Many pan-European banks are very reluctant to accept payments which comes out of or as a revenue of selling crypto currency or dealing with cryptocurrency. So I think the regulation has started or has start to implement or to break the walls against the crypto and digital financial system. It is changing the established structure. Regulations are maybe not as fast as the life, but it is changing. It is no no or negative attributes to crypto and digital, and probably it will start happening in the banks. I mean, sorry, probably. English is not my native language. I'm apologizing for talking too much to say too little. But on the other side, we are, let's say, like a link between East and West. What Asia is doing, we are talking to Singapore. So probably we are too far to them, like second world. China, Singapore, Thailand, Taiwan, they are too fast. China has announced DCEP, digital currency electronic payment. They involved Alipay, WeChat, Tencent, I don't know, BAT, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, all the biggest companies. Young population in Asia is very used to contactless, wireless, how can I say, digital, immediate payment, however to say it, no cashless, almost cashless society. And it is, how can I say, it is more attached to their thinking, understanding, not to say brain. It could be a bad thing to say to the brain, but to their mind, much more than what I felt on the Western European world. If China succeed, I believe it will, with their digital yuan, most of the, no, doesn't matter countries, most of the businesses would not like, in my view, they would not like to lose the, how can I say, step to lose the connections, and they will accept it. It will, so it will go through that, the blood will take through that veins. It will spread to the others. And then regulators who are now very reluctant, I believe, either they will become obsolete or they will jump in. And then they will look for a standard setter. Could be China, standard setter could be in regulatory business, could be EU. So we will see. But I believe this is fast changing. So the regulator you have in mind, the one who sits on the counter, and you have to come and explain everything, and he can refuse you like with no reason. That time is gone. From the high level, political level discussion, it is coming through. Implementation is a bit lacking because of the, in my view, or in my experience, because of the banks, especially big pan-European banks. But the real life is, I mean, real life, especially from the East, is bringing these new initiatives, new technologies in everyday life. I can.
So, Warren, from a question. So, when we do you think, does anybody think on this discussion that this all hasn't happened due mainly in part to the fact of the decentralized nature of these technologies and the fact they were very difficult to, if not impossible, to shut down? And then two, when you compare that to Asia, because you mentioned Asian, and that's true. WeChat is basically, it's an app that does everything, right? I mean, nobody uses cash. Your 3-year-old, when they walk into the convenience store to buy candy, uses, with a fingerprint or a retina scan or whatever. Nobody uses cash for anything. Now, most other like Western world countries have been slow to adopt a cashless society, mainly out of fear of the technology. I think the fact that they didn't want to see something go wrong. But they had the luxury to move slow because the populace wasn't expanding and the middle class wasn't expanding as fast as it was in Asia. So Asia, when I look at like Bitcoin, for example, decentralized protocol, a government can't necessarily just shut it down, so they have to deal with it. And when I look at China, I see, or Asia in general, I see cashless payments, and I see it as they didn't, because their populace was moving so quickly, was gaining ground so quickly, because the middle class was expanding so fast, they had no choice but to adopt those types of. I don't, in my mind, it's not so much that they had this innovative thought that this is going to change the world. It's simply that it was almost impossible for them to stop, and they didn't have it from the traditional side with digital payments. They didn't have the ability to keep up with the growing populace and the growing middle class. And from the global perspective on Bitcoin, and crypto in general, they just couldn't. It was technologically impossible to stop, and that's why it's still here. If it wasn't decentralized, I don't think it would exist. I think it would. The designer would have been found. He'd be in a jail somewhere on money laundering charges, conspiracy, mail fraud, whatever you want. And there's many. For instance, I'll throw one company out there, eGold. So eGold was a centralized digital payment mechanism for digital gold back in the early 2000s, and it was run by a doctor out of Florida who ended up in jail for the reason that he ran a payment system that the government said that criminals use to move money around the world. So anyway, just like Zoran, I said a lot to say little. But my general question to the table is one, is the fact that regulators are now kind of opening up, is it simply just because they can't do anything about it? And then two, on the China side, on Asia side, has that expansion happened only because they had no choice? That there was no way from the traditional side to support such a growing populace?
I cannot exactly answer, especially the second question you asked. I were in China many times. We research China from academic side. I believe our European or US mind is not structured well to understand China, but doesn't say now who is better, who is worse. It is not just like that. But our democracy cannot be our understanding of business, democracy, moral order cannot be applied. It is the different culture. It is not Christianity. It is Confucianism. It is overpopulation. It is many different things. 5,000 years of how can I say, history or culture in China, and Western society is only 500-600 years. But anyway, maybe it is overpopulation, maybe it is necessity, maybe they could not do anything against it. I'm thinking it is the force which is present. They are starting traveling or already started traveling. Plenty of Chinese tourists are going around. They prefer much more to use WeChat or any other Alipay, which they are used to in daily life. They doesn't think about financial system or financial stability or monetary policy. There is ordinary people just using to pay what they are used to. And that's spreading. Each seller of services or goods in tourism in Montenegro already each. Most of them are accepting WeChat. It is not question of do you think it's good or bad. It expands my market. So people are starting using it. And that's how I think the big numbers will develop. Probably the same with the banks. And in crypto world was associated mostly to anti-money laundering policy or whatever. I remember clearly, I think it was maybe when I said we met in 2018, it was my misjudgment in 2018. It was World Bank and IMF regional meeting in Croatia, which is neighboring country to us. And I remember clearly that Minister of Finance and Governor came from that meeting as they represent the country. And the only thing they said, we have to forbid crypto. Guys, don't do it. It was the main topic on the agenda. Forbid, forbid, forbid. Why forbid? Let's make it legal. Let's make it traceable. But okay, I don't want to how can I say, to make unsound things. I believe the digital will be more accepted into the official financial system with the aim to be traceable, to allow countries or the state institutions to be on that side, to see who pay, for what they pay, to pay taxes, of course, on that, and then it will be fine.
Well, I think just to run off what Zoran said there, with the culture in China and Asia in general, I think people are more willing to take a little more risk, and that's why that they've taken on these digital payment systems with open arms. And just to hit a question there from Musa,
yes,
he mentions
because plenty of countries in EU already has a sandbox. Will
Yeah.
there be any issue? No, it is the same what they have already.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think just to hit that question from Mustafa, he says, how are you going to reach the right people? Well, I think, with these payment systems in China, it's friends sharing the information, and once one person tells another person that it works okay and they trust it, and that's how you spread the word. So initially, the Asian population has a little more risk, and once they develop that trust, then it spread. Anyway, Kev, go ahead with the.
Yeah, so you were just addressing this. So the last question was just, would there be any effect when Montenegro joins the EU? To the sandbox, Oren's answer was quick and precise. No, there are sandboxes in the EU, so generally speaking, there wouldn't be an issue to adapt it to whatever change may happen in course of that acceptance into the EU. And then we have another question here, just saying education is important, yet it's but it is easy to understand. And how are you going to reach the right people? Because I'm sure many will invest. So I guess this is, I would take this as a broad question as far as reach people, not specific to any project here, but just how are we collectively, reaching people, whether it be the regulator trying to make it known that there's a sandbox where people can come and test innovative ideas, from companies that are trying to reach, the outward populace to get people to invest in their idea, or whatever. Personally, I don't know of any newfangled spectacular, DLT is great, but I haven't heard of, DLT outreach yet. There's no marketing funnel through blockchain, so at the end of the day, I guess it's shoe leather like it used to be. It's just getting the word out. It's traffic to a website. It's talking to friends and family. It's doing road shows. It's talking to people. It's doing things like Singapore Blockchain Week and talking to everyone listening today. It's just about, it's just doing the work. Unfortunately, I don't think we've yet found the way to just snap our fingers and have a product or service be known by everyone in the world, right? It's just hard work. I'm not sure there's any newfangled way to do that. But if someone knows, please.
And once a project proves itself and that trust is gained, then that's when the population themselves, or you guys listening, are going to go and tell your friends, and those people are going to tell their friends, and that's how it's going to spread. But we've just got to get you guys to understand the product and trust it.
Yeah. The best way is in any business is word of mouth. When you are transparent and you prove what you're doing, to that one individual, you'll probably tell your friends. But then, just like you're saying, Evan and Kevin, the best way to get out there is in my opinion, is to use the traditional marketing techniques that we have, whether they're digital or others. But we all, I think we all have the latest, greatest cutting edge, technologies, but without that proper marketing, we won't get anywhere. So as you said, Kevin, we just have to get out there. We have to be at these road shows. We have to be, on all these virtual conferences, given the current condition. But again, I think that's how we're going to get out.
And I think part of the question there is as well, how do you reach the right people? And that's, of course, a brilliant question always. How do you build up your sales funnel? But again, there is nothing new in that world. It's effectively, how to make your communication smart. Yes, we can go out and, present ourselves to the entire world, but what's the benefit if we are not addressing 90% of the right customers who are our investors, for example? So it's really the same, the same communication strategies, what everybody has been saying in the panel already. That it's kind of how do you identify the focus group? How do you really make your communication to be part of their journey, so to speak?
Yeah. On that note, so for the Tangible Basecamp project, we're a property-backed development, but that'll have rental revenues on top of the bond and capital gains. But Daryl, what's your product? How are you guys? What's security?
Sure. So I'm really glad you asked that, Evan. We are a little unique in the fact that, though a lot of security token offerings are, within real estate and some other projects like that, we actually have 3 separate things that we're tying into our offering. We do have, a number of different proprietary trading strategies that are used within, the crypto space. We do, trade some cryptos in what I would say a low risk fashion. We do use some decentralized finance and techniques within that to return stable gains within the crypto side. We do also embrace some of the traditional markets. We have some algos that do trade within the futures market. So we may trade oil futures, NQ futures, E-minis, various other things like that. But again, they're overseen by all of us as a team and very specific people on the team. But again, they are driven by algos. Those two items, they may seem to most maybe a little more risky, but to provide some additional stability, we are engaging with some renewable energies. We're bringing on some solar plays actually into our fold that will also be the third leg within our fund. So we're
in general, as an investor invests fiat or other types of other asset, gets a token, and you guys trade this package of back-end securities for profit.
Yeah, so they get access to those technologies, and through this type of distribution network, I mean, they can get access to technologies that are normally reserved for the upper 1%, and so we're excited to be able to offer that.
Right.
I have a question that just came up, I think for Zoran. So, has Zoran noticed a softening stance toward crypto among the regulators he knows or connects with? I think Zoran already mentioned that he has, at least from a broader level, but maybe you want to add some additional granularity to that response.
Yes, I cannot point to exactly, any of them, but from my experience, from my contacts, in UK, you can speak to FSA now as how can I say, you can even have a friendly lunch with them, explaining what is your idea, what do you want. It doesn't need to be you go to the offices and waiting for who knows what. After the first contact, 3, 4, 5 of them will join to the meeting with you, go for a lunch, and then you discuss it. I mean, more freely than in the office, behind the desk, and so on. The things are changing.
Right, which is good for all of us, I guess.
Of course.
So I think, well, we've been here roughly 90 minutes. I think we've done a good service. Is there anything anybody else wants to touch on? Any specific topic that we think that the listening public might want to gain some access to? Obviously, we talk about these things all the time, so sometimes we're a bit we don't know exactly what people may want to hear or want to listen to. Does anybody have something to throw up?
I maybe one point what I've learned in the course of my journey as well, but the question mostly goes to Evan and Daryl, is you both are actually going through the retail transaction and doing an IPO. So if you have to pick one thing which been the most difficult or challenging for you, so what has that been?
Well, personally, I think that maybe dealing with all the regulations and making sure that you do understand all the regs and are building your project out in a completely compliant way. I would say that maybe in our early estimations was something that we thought we could do quicker, but that has been something that's been going back and forth between council and working with them, and that's been a bit of a challenge. But as time goes by, and the fact that Zoran is here with the CMA of Montenegro, I mean, hopefully other regulators will look over his shoulder and say, hey, they did it in 6 to 8 weeks. We can do it. So
right, but Daryl, to follow up on that, even then, would you say the time has been the project has been consuming, the preparation has been consuming that much time because of the interaction with a regulator, or simply the myriad of regulations which is applicable and which you are trying to comply with?
Yeah, I'd say it's just like we said, the myriad of regulations that we do have to comply with. U.S. is probably a very difficult market to have your primary issuance in, but we have to do it in this regulated and compliant way. I mean, that's the only way we know to do it. That's how we can sleep at night, even though most people in crypto don't sleep very much. But
They have to sleep at some time.
Yeah, you're right. We do have to sleep sometime.
They crash, I believe.
Yeah. Evan, what about you?
Well, I got to admit, I haven't had the same troubles as Daryl, because Daryl's had to set this up from scratch and deal with regulators himself, whereas us as a company have come to Ignium and CoinMetro as a team. And as I said before, you guys have done the heavy lifting as far as identified regulations, set up a framework where we can list our issuance. So it hasn't been that tough. I think the challenge ahead for us is that education, spreading the word, and making people aware of the project, and in doing that, gaining that trust. So I think our work is ahead of us just prior to the launch of the sale. But in regard to that heavy lifting, I think you guys have really helped us out immeasurably there. Offered a product that we're using for, I think, world first, right? It's being used for the first time.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. That was unsolicited promotion.
Right. Everyone should reach out to you because you guys are expert in the industry. So.
I think. I mean, like we said, we always blame every topic we bring up, even marketing. We can blame the sorry, Zoran, but we can blame the regulator even on marketing, because in many jurisdictions you have to, get all your ducks in a row. Even when it comes to even when you're approved to issue, you still have to be approved to market.
Yep.
But I think I would agree with Evan, to be honest, in terms of, because I guess if you go into, like we talked about before, if you go into, and I think many people did, I mean, we did in many aspects as well, when you go into issuance thinking that it's different and you realize it's not, depending on how long that takes, then you realize you have to do what everybody else has to do in the traditional market. So it's not like there's new things you have to do. It's just, you got to do what everybody else had to do for the last 30, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, whatever, 1938, 9, whatever it was. It's 80 years now, whatever. But the marketing definitely is a difficult one, because you just like, I think Musab correctly questioned, how do you find the right people? And you can have a great idea, but if no one hears it, if somebody chops a tree down in the woods and no one hears it, did it actually get chopped down? Right, that old saying. It's difficult. It's difficult to, especially when you're limited to where you can market. And the cool thing, I guess, about the internet is that we have tools that we can focus on specific places. It's great, because that was much more difficult back in the day when you had to have a broker for newspaper ads and things like that. But that's still, there's a lot of traditional that still needs to happen. And I think one of the biggest barriers is just making sure people know what's going on. That's always a difficult one. So anyway, we've talked a lot about cons and pros and why we're doing this, and a little bit, but we and Daryl talked a bit about exactly what he's doing, which is good, which is cool. So everybody, and so if anybody who wasn't here or missed it, it's a tokenized fund. So he's taking like traders, whether algos, quant traders on traditional markets, on crypto markets, they're trading. Basically, you buy a tokenized entry ticket into the fund, and they trade your money. I mean, that's essentially how it works for the most part. So that's cool. Tokenized funds, I think, are probably I've read about a few ideas about tokenizing funds. I was even at the World Economic Forum with someone that was talking about tokenizing a fund, but they haven't done it yet either. And that guy actually works for inside the Obama administration, and still hasn't. I guess working for the Obama administration is probably not a pro right now during what I think that's the barrier. I don't know. But as far as and Evan's already touched a bit on tangible. Maybe we can just give a brief overview. We talked about how Montenegro came to be, the framework. Maybe we give a brief overview on what CoinMetro, Ignium, and Tangible are kind of doing together. Evan, you touched a bit about that you didn't have to go through all those regulatory hurdles, maybe that Daryl talked about. I guess, but on the other side, obviously, we haven't yet kind of just gone a bit more granular on the transaction side and what it means for CoinMetro, Ignium, and Tangible together. So I don't know, maybe Remo, you want to give a brief overview of just Ignium and what role it plays in that trifecta?
Sure. Happy to. The role of Ignium is provide underlying underlying infrastructure for the investors and issuers to connect. And this particular case, how Ignium was born in the first place. There was a kind of felt the necessity to connect globally all issuers and investors, because currently the connection is really defined by the existing securities market infrastructure. Unless you're doing ICOs, but you cannot really go really big on ICOs, everybody knows. So we provide exactly the same here. Tangible as a project comes to us, we onboard the Tangible, provide it all the issuer services, provide a cap table service, provide corporate services such as coupon payment, conversions into a new instrument, and then enable investors globally to connect that issuer, issue the instruments on blockchain through one place. So no intermediaries. This effectively, yes, you could say Ignium is the intermediator, but we would be more not as an intermediary, but as an operator, so that investors across the globe can come to Tangible and get the assets, get the blockchain assets, and hold those with Ignium. So that's what we provide. Enable on a very affordable way, in a very reliable way, to connect investors and issuers globally. And we do exactly the same for the for Tangible. So we onboard Tangible, we onboard investors, we provide services to them.
I figured I'd throw this one out there. I just thought this was, not at all, but.
What can I say? I'm in a conference room of the hotel in Tartu. That's the best one I could find.
Okay. Well, you can't win them all.
I think it's good.
What can I say?
Kevin's office is like 9 levels.
Yeah. It's also almost, the guy's first and last name are literally almost my middle name. So this looks like I posted it myself, but I didn't. I swear to God. I'll just touch a bit on CoinMetro, how we play in that. So Remo talked about Ignium infrastructure, right? All markets need infrastructure. Most people don't focus on infrastructure. They focus on making shiny apps that use all the old infrastructure and don't really change anything. Ignium is about actually changing the way that capital markets function on the back end, which nobody cares about, but they should, because it's how things actually function. And the back end is what's broken. Front end is actually pretty good. You can go to if you go to a stockbroker right now and go to trade stocks, the front end is probably not your worst. You have Robinhood, you have all these things, lots of front ends that are cool. It's the back end that sucks. So on that note, CoinMetro works on the front end, just like everybody else. But our kind of role in this issuance is we're providing a bit of front end for Tangible for their initial primary offering. Ignium's handling the back end. We're handling the front end. So a nice little markets place where you can go and read about Tangible, what they're doing, and then invest. Whether you're using your credit card, whether you're using a SEPA payment, a faster payment in the UK, whether you're using crypto, whatever, and you can invest and buy the token, which is then custodied at Ignium infrastructure. But you can trade once it goes into secondary market trading at CoinMetro. So you're able to trade in and out. One of the biggest issues with markets around the world is liquidity. And that's because they're siloed and segmented. We talked about this in the panel. We've kind of beaten that horse to death. But the reason why they're segmented is because there's no connectivity. Again, infrastructure, and that's what Ignium takes care of in this equation. So just brought this up. I saw this one pop up. So reverse solicitation. So I would explain what this is.
Maybe I take it.
Yeah. Since we have a lawyer on the panel.
So the question, if I understand Musab correctly, is due to reverse solicitation. Can you market the SKI project? The SKI project itself, that is financial instruments issued by Tangible, by the project company in Japan. We are not relying on a reverse solicitation as far as those instruments are concerned. There will be active soliciting, there will be active marketing, but it will be under the safe harbors provided by different jurisdictions. In Europe, it will be under the prospectus regulation and subject to national laws. And in US, it will be Rec D 506C. So that's how it will be done. It will be active marketing. As far as the infrastructure providers are concerned, that is Ignium and CoinMetro. If the question relates to that, we will not be marketing those actively. Those will be sitting there on the sidelines, infrastructure is not the main player here. The hero of the movie or hero of the show is tangible. We are the silent assistants on the back.
And if you haven't seen the Tangible website, check it out. You'll see, and the brochure is coming. You'll see why Evan is a superhero. He flies planes and rides motorcycles and fights bears.
I know these guys.
Oh, so you guys should check that out.
Wow.
He looks fine
And you know,
in the panel discussion, but in fact,
it's not a tangible website. It's basecampniseko.com.
very good. Sorry about that. Yeah. I tried, Evan. I tried. I tried. You should post the website somewhere. Post it in the chat.
But gents, being respectful towards everyone's time, what do you think? Did we start summing up?
Yes.
I think that makes sense. I think we've done a lot here. I think hopefully people that listen thought the same. So I guess everybody want to give a 10-second just goodbye or a quick promo or whatever you want to do, but make it quick. And I guess we'll start on the Zoran. You want to do a promo for Montenegro, little tourism promo?
Right time. Welcome to Montenegro. Beautiful coast, beautiful nights, very safe environment, and then we can talk friendly and freely.
Go talk to the CMA if you need to do something there. They'll listen. So we can definitely attest to that. Remo?
Absolutely. I would say yes. In this kind of I would say go to Montenegro and subscribe to Tangible.
Not exactly in that order. Just
Welcome.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh. Well, after you guys go to Montenegro, you can come check us out over here at COG Network. But we're here to help educate you and bring you guys up to speed on these markets. And we look forward to talking to you. Thanks.
Evan.
For me, look, guys, thanks for listening. Please come and have a look at our project, basecampniseko.com. If you're looking to raise capital, you've got a legitimate project, speak to the guys at Ignium, Kevin and Ramo. And thanks again. Thanks, gents. Thanks for having us here.
So just to close out, if you're tired of talking to regulators and you want one that'll actually listen, Zoran, find them, CMA Montenegro. If you need infrastructure, you need to do an issuance, you need to raise some money, Ignium, Ramo. You can find them on LinkedIn and Twitter. If you looking to invest and to diversify yourself a bit more and want to invest in some funds, things that you may not have access to otherwise, well, look up Daryl Parker for COG Network, and they're working on making that happen for you. If you like to ski or want to own a property or without having to actually travel, if Japan is cool and mystical for you, look at basecampniseko.com and check out Evan. He's a cool guy. I think you should trust him. And then, if you're looking to buy some crypto or you just want to learn something, you can check out coinmetro.com. We are an exchange. We're a challenger bank. We're doing lots of things. We have the securities marketplace with the Montenegro sandbox. And on top of that, I do something called Kevin Explains Crypto. So if you don't understand something, look up that site, kevinexplainscrypto.com. Send me something you want to know about, and I'll do a video about it. And hopefully, well, you'll learn something. And maybe I will too. So that's it. And thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Thanks to Rachel as well, who had to leave a bit early. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And catch you on the next panel or round table or whatever. So thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.